What's up, witches? Welcome back to another episode of the BetterWitch podcast, where we have candid conversations with real life practitioners and professionals because when we know better, we witch better. We're broadcasting live from Witchwork right now, New York City's only co working space for witches. I'm your host, Allie Kravitz, aka Bronx Witch, and I'm the founder of Witchwork and the CEO of Better Witch Coaching. You can tune in to live tapings of this show from my YouTube channel, Better Witch Coaching and Podcast. Today's guest co-host is Meaghan Senn. Meaghan is a business witch, astrology, and human design embodiment guide, helping soulpreneurs and creators to embrace their energetic blueprint and inner magic for more success, abundance, and daily fulfillment on their own terms. You can learn more about Meaghan on Instagram at Meaghan Senn. That's MEAGHANSENN. Welcome to the show, Meaghan. It is so great to see you. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am great. And just like someone in the comments, it's already dropped. What's up, Dr. Quantum says, excited for this topic. I've been wanting to dive deeper into this system for a few years. And I definitely feel the exact same way. I feel like some of the things that we are going to talk about are topics, especially when it comes to human design, that I'm always seeing floating around, and I'm always seeing people talk about. But I feel like it's probably one of like the lesser talked about or the lesser known ways to really like know yourself, understand yourself, build a life that's based around like what you really vibrate comfortably as. And so I want to get into some of the nitty gritty details. It's probably going to sound very like basic, very 101, but I'm just assuming that a lot of the listeners and a lot of the watchers are similar to me and are kind of like starting at square one when it comes to human design. But then I also want to talk about astrology. And I feel like that's something that maybe people understand a little bit more. And maybe that's a way for us to kind of like build a bridge basically and bridge the gap of understanding for people who maybe get astrology to some extent but are very new to human design and like what it can do for them. So first of all, I think you might be a friend. Did we meet on Threads?
Yes, we did.
Okay. This has been, I swear to God, Threads is not paying me for whatever reason. I am not in the bonus program. I feel like I qualify and should be, but it has not happened yet. So this is not a plug for Threads whatsoever, but everybody who's been on, who I've met on Threads, I've been like, can we give a shout out to Threads for a second? Because I feel like it is a hidden gem for the moment while it is in its untouched state. And for all my spiritual practitioners out there, if you're looking for collaborators, if you're looking for community, if you're looking for clients even, Threads is really where it's at. Are you enjoying your time on this weird app that like nobody seems to know about?
I was so resistant to being on there for the first year because I was like, ugh, another social media platform that I need to be on. And then I just like caved. And it's so much fun because one, I just treat it as like my public notes app. And so it's also really good for like content repurposing that way. And obviously collaboration. I get most of my collabs now through there. And just I've connected to so many like local people to my area who are in like the witchy spiritual community. I found my like now favorite local witch store through Threads. So it's really great for all of those things that I feel like sometimes is a little bit harder on Instagram because with Threads we can only focus on like our words instead of trying to fulfill like all the different modalities on Instagram.
Yeah, no, I don't have to be an Oscar award-winning cinematographer to get people to read my thread the way it is with other platforms. And I just find that for those of you who say, like, I, have founded Witchwork, which is a co-working space for witches, rather unique business model in many ways. And when people find out about us, one of the things I hear the most is like, oh my gosh, I wish there was a Witchwork in my city or in my town. And while there may not be like a Witchwork specifically, I think people are under the impression that, there aren't other witchy people around them.
Mhm.
And that's just not the case, like, at all, even if you're in like the smallest town ever. I promise there are folks like you. And it's really important, I think, for spiritual folks to be united with each other, and know that we're not disjointed and we're not alone. Um, and I feel like that kind of ties into a lot of like what we have in common in terms of what we do, which is
Mhm.
helping people who, as you call it, are soulpreneurs, people who have spiritual gifts, who have purpose driven missions, who have access to different healing modalities or traditions or practices that are just as important as any other. And the way to make sure that those practices are actually usable, that those gifts that you have are actually usable in the world that we live in, is to find ways to monetize those gifts, monetize those skills, monetize that knowledge so that you can actually afford to show up in the world and be the healer, be the reader, be the mystic, that you came here to be. And I just find that finding other people that are like you is important,
Mhm.
um, and super, super helpful. And you have a membership group called the Wealthy Witch Coven. And just like learning that about you and learning about that space had me thinking about archetypes
Mhm.
and the concept that when we were born, the different placements that we were born under can kind of almost create like a blueprint
Mhm.
for the type of person that we are. Because I
Yeah.
was like, oh, wealthy witch coven. I was like, there's just a type of person that's like on that vibe that could even like put those two words together and feel really comfortable with that. Because there are some types of people that like literally cringe at the idea of putting those two things together and have like a really hard concept with the idea of a spiritual provider, practitioner, a wellness provider, a healer being wealthy and
Mhm.
like being abundant and being financially well off or having success in business.
Yeah.
Um, and I wanted to like talk about that a little bit. And first of all, be nosy and ask you about like your astrological breakdown. Like, what are your top three?
Yeah.
And, like, do they align with like the placements that maybe typically gravitate towards using their spiritual gifts for monetary abundance? Or like, are there astrological archetypes? Like, if I'm a certain sign or something, like,
Mhm.
does that lend itself to me like having that type of personality or like doing well in business?
Yeah. So I'm a Sagittarius sun, Scorpio moon, Pisces rising, and I also have a Sagittarius, or not a Sagittarius, a Scorpio and eighth house stellium. So very much with my North Node in there as well. So very much like my path is diving into all things like esoteric, occult, witchy,
Yeah.
and building like my own version of wealth. And with having like the South Node in Taurus and the second house, I have gone through my own money journey, healing like my money wounds, healing the very typical stories we get told where like, doing what you love is not profitable. Like, you can do it on the side, but you can't really, it's going to be really hard to do it full time or to make a living out of it or be prosperous doing it. And if like you do end up doing it, you're just lucky. Like it's not like a normal thing that you can really have control over. And I
Yeah.
think as a Sagittarius too, like I don't like to be told what to do or what I can and can't do.
Mm.
Um and I was telling my partner the other day, I was reflecting on that TikTok sound that used to be popular a couple years ago where it was like dream job, I don't dream of labor or something
Oh,
like that.
yes. Oh my God. Yes. I remember that. Darling, I don't dream of labor.
Yeah, and I was like,
Yeah.
it's like so silly, but it really resonates with me because I never had like a dream job growing up. Like when people would ask what you want to be, like I would never know because I was like, I don't really dream of like the traditional work structures that we've been, raised to strive towards. Like I just want to like do what I love and live my life and like
Mhm.
experience things and help people and things like that. And I think through witchcraft and going on my own money healing journey and building this spiritual business and really embracing like the wealthy witch archetype has allowed me to not just create that physical opportunity but put myself in like the energy and the like emotional mindset to like hold that opportunity too. And that's, I think, the first step is like the physical opportunity or reality of, for anyone who wants to do anything similar, it starts with holding that in your mind and in your energy and in your emotional body. And like that's kind of like my whole thing with the wealthy witch coven is I want people to like really see that it's possible for them, but also one on their own terms. Because I'm all about like you doing whatever you want and getting to where you want to be, how you want to do it, and not following rules or doing things because you think you should do things and stuff like that. But also defining like what that looks like for them. Because I think sometimes people hear wealthy witch and they think that means like, oh, that means I have to have like X amount on the bank account, or I have to just be materially wealthy and things like that. And if that is aligned with what your top desire is, then that's what wealthy witch is to you. But it's also a wealth of personal power, a wealth of knowledge, a wealth of experience, a wealth of generosity or love or whatever it is. So I also, one of the big things that I guide the members on is like finding what your own definition of being a wealthy witch is and really embodying that, because I think we also get so caught up in what wealth should mean or should look like that we don't even allow ourselves to see ourselves in that archetype, because we think it's this unattainable archetype or unattainable definition or measurement of wealth that like we haven't obtained yet.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that like identifying and clearly creating a vision of what wealth is for you, what success is for you, what abundance is for you, is hugely transformational, because I think you really like nailed it on the head. I think one of the things that holds anybody back um, is the comparison to others.
Mm-hmm.
And when we look at I can't, I can't sing to save my life. You know what I mean? Like I'd be dead if I had to sing my way out of like my, execution for just guillotine, just go ahead, right? So like it's not happening. But I like any other person might look at like recording artists and be like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to reach that like level of success because like I can't sing. And it's like, no, okay, you are probably not going to have that version of it,
Mm-hmm.
but you could absolutely have your version of success and wealth and progress in life. And when you identify your own, you start to realize, I think, how unique it is and how it doesn't compare to other people's and how it doesn't make sense to compare yourself to other people. Because it's like, no,
Yeah.
of course not, Allie. You were not ever going to be a recording artist with like, millions thrown at you to like do a show. Like that's not going to, but that's okay. Like what
Yeah.
that looks for you, like maybe wealth for you looks like being able to retire on a homestead. Maybe wealth for you means owning property. Maybe wealth for you means being able to work from wherever in the world or be able to travel to wherever you'd like. Or maybe wealth for you means being able to give back to certain communities or protect your family in certain ways.
Mm-hmm.
And that was something that really got me into vision boarding. And I've been doing that now for like 5 years, and it's unbelievable. Like I have to do it every year because I'm like, literally this shit just like manifests.
Yeah.
And it really is like that, like, oh, I didn't even try half the time.
Right.
And I realized that really all just comes down to me having that clear vision for
Mm-hmm.
myself of what I want my year to look like. And so
Yeah.
the same is the truth for like what you want your life to look like. And that vision in some ways can be made up. It can be just sort of your desires and things like that. But I think it's also helpful to look at your astrological makeup to
Mm-hmm.
in kind of like inform you of
Mhm.
that vision. It's almost like I feel like your astrology, your birth chart, not only can it tell you what your skills are and things
Mhm.
like that, but it can actually kind of like answer questions like that. Like, what type of
Yeah.
success would actually make me happy? Like, I
Mhm.
might think I want to be able to, like, travel all over the world. But in reality, if I had that, I actually would be really stressed out. The truth
Mhm.
is that, like, I'm programmed, because it is a programming, like, I'm programmed to actually really want to stay at home, but have a lot of space. Like,
Mhm.
maybe I just need a lot of land, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that I can feel like I can be in different places, but not endure the stress. Like, that's a very specific example. But I'm just coming up with, like, the idea of, like, your astrology being able to tell you not just what your skills are, but also kind of what would make you happy and, like, what
Yeah.
types of success would work for you. So, is that something that you do with your clients? Do you look at astrology charts for that type of information? And if I was trying to sort of answer some questions like that for myself, would my birth chart reveal some answers there?
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely work with clients on that, and it's funny that you brought that specific part of astrology up specifically because next month I'm launching, like, a limited reading that's, like, focused on things like that, like your next
Mm,
version of success and, like the next evolution of your purpose and fulfilling that and things like that in ways that are really fulfilling. And we can definitely look at what type of success is going to be the most fulfilling. How do you reach that type of success? And the ways that you're meant to find wealth in your life, because there's so many different ways that you can experience wealth, and everyone has their own unique path of achieving that. And I think people get really caught up in generalizations, and I see it a lot on TikTok where it's like the videos of if you have these placements, you're destined for wealth. And the comments are just full of people being like, oh, I don't have any of those. I'm just going to be broke the rest of my life. And it's like, no, those people might have typically like in content like that, those placements achieve wealth through wealth focused things like traditional wealth focused things or tend to be maybe more naturally inclined, but everyone has the potential to achieve wealth success that's going to be fulfilling for them in their own unique way. And it's really about deconditioning out all the shoulds and other people's ways of doing things and stories and how you saw your parents do things and like generational stories and things like that about how things get to work for you, and really hone into what your, like you said, programming is in your birth chart of how things are meant to work for you. And what I really also like about looking at the birth chart through this lens is it can also show us what our comfort zone is and how we self sabotage and how we hold ourselves back from that fulfilling success or evolving our purpose and walking that path. So it really can be helpful for shining a light on those things, but also doing the necessary shadow work so that you're not holding yourself back or playing small or self-sabotaging, um, or resisting resistance, which is really just like the universe trying to push you outside of your comfort zone to something better. Um, and maybe it's just the Scorpio in me, but I love pushing people past like that comfort zone and that resistance, because it's that temporary discomfort opens you up to so much more fulfillment. And it's not even about the external success on the other side, but to me it's that internal fulfillment that nothing outside of you can take away. Then at that point, that's to me true success and power in the birth chart.
yeah, I really love that. That reminds me of something. I went to like a conference, and there was a wealth manager there, and he was asked like what success means, and he said that for him it was being equally as happy working as being like at home. Like, for him it was just a feeling of like, I could be doing either, like, because they're just so equal in my life. And that's what success is to me. It doesn't matter what I'm making or anything like that. It's about doing whatever it is that I call work, and not feeling begrudge, like, upset about it, not feeling like it's taking from me, not feeling like it's bringing me down. And so that makes me think of like that fulfillment aspect, that like success is being fulfilled. Abby says, what's up, Abby? Abby said that wealth for her means time. And I really love that, because I think that's probably something that a lot of us resonate with. That a certain amount of money isn't really the goal. The goal is to be able to have a certain amount of access to our own time, free time, to have control over our time. And I think that using our astrology, using our birth chart, to help kind of shine light on what that means is a really helpful tool. Something that I did, it was actually gifted to me by one of our community members. Shout out to you, Lauren Berg, who got me a birth chart, like astrology reading for my business. So this was really, really cool. And looking at my business as an entity and as its own like individual, and looking at its makeup was also super helpful. So there's so much that can like be done. And what I find really interesting about you and your own business and like the way you approach things is that you have a business degree, you were on a professional trajectory, and then spirituality kind of came into the mix for you. And oftentimes I find folks that maybe have like technical degrees or corporate background are usually like, oh, spirituality, whatever. Anyway, sun, moon, da da da, right? So when you were like, oh no, actually, I did that first, and then started realizing how effective it is for me to bring spiritual practices into how I'm growing my business, how I advise other people on their businesses, I was like, oh, that's really cool. And I was curious about that. So like, how did that happen for you? Where did you start looking to the stars and to the spirits and being like, oh, this actually works. Like this actually, coupled with my business knowledge, is going to allow me to create the success I'm looking for.
Yeah. I mean, I was into spirituality, but more on a personal level before I started this business. And then when I started this business, I really just wanted like time freedom. I wanted like all the freedoms and I didn't want to be told what to do. I wanted to, and I like at the end of the day, I really wanted to create something meaningful. And I just wasn't going to find that meaning doing stuff for other people in terms of like helping them grow their dream while not simultaneously growing my dream at the same time. And the first 4 months in the business that I have now, I had hired a business coach who was also a spiritual business coach. So that really helped me integrate more of connecting spiritually in my business. But I found, and this, I feel like I came into when like the online business space when people were really pushing the whole like you can just start your own business and make 6 figures within a year and like all this other stuff. And like I definitely fell into that. I had like the shiny object syndrome. And in 4 months, I was really frustrated, which I'm a generator in human design. So frustration is my like red flag that, hey, something's not in alignment, because and comparison was part of that, because I was comparing myself to everyone else around me who was doing anything similar in their timeline and their success. But I also was getting very one size fits all business advice. And anytime I would come back with like, hey, I've been doing this, I've been trying it, but something's not working, or it doesn't feel right for me, or it feels frustrating, I wasn't getting any sort of like additional, okay, well, we can try this, or we can try this in flexibility. It was very rigid. And I was like, there has to be a better way. Like, there's no way that like, I just have to grin and bear it and like suck it up and hope that it gets better. And that really, catapulted me into human design, which I had known a bit about before, but I was kind of like, oh, this is, you know, this just seems like a more complicated version of astrology. Like, I don't know about this. And then I just dove like in the deep end in human design, and it completely changed my business, because it showed me that all the ways that my soul was like nudging me to do business were aligned with my human design. And I don't have to do it X, Y, and Z way just because someone who makes $1 million that I hired like did it that way and it worked for them and is telling me to do it that way. And it really just, it completely changed everything.
Mhm.
And then I was like, there's no way that I can coach people in their business and not use their human design in it. And that's kind of really where everything with what my business really is today took off from, is that just my own experience and frustration with the very limited shadow side of Capricorn energy that's all about like structures and rules and tradition and doing this X, Y, and Z way and hustling and stuff like that. Whereas I'm more like, I just want to have fun. I want to connect with people. I want to help make a difference. I want the work that I do to feel passionate and creative and inspire people. And it took on the other side of that too, was it really helped me decondition a lot of those like success limiting beliefs or success
Mhm.
stories of either what I had to value as success or what my measurements of success were that weren't really aligned for me, or like we were talking about earlier, like what is fulfilling success to you.
Right.
And it really like frees your business from, and even like just your goals and your purpose from anything that would hold you down or just like suck the life out of you and your business and
Yeah.
your purpose. And I think that now that Pluto's in Aquarius, we're seeing like a lot more people are waking up to this new option of how you can go about business. Or even I'm seeing a lot of people, clients and people in the membership now this past year have also woken up from like, hey, you don't have to be a coach or have to just be like a healer or a spiritual practitioner. And a lot of people thought that that was the only way to create something on their own, or be their own boss or create a business, was through the traditional, like, just create a coaching business and start coaching people on what your gifts are. And people are waking up to, I actually want to be like a content creator or an artist,
Mhm.
or I just want to build like a personal brand and like just do a bunch of random things that really light
Mhm.
me up. And so I'm
Mhm.
seeing a lot of people wake up to, like, even besides just doing entrepreneurship on your own terms, that also means that entrepreneurship can be literally anything that you're passionate about, can be monetized, and it doesn't have to be these rigid structures of like just be a coach or a teacher, or these kind of more
Right.
limited ways that we are introduced to online business in the past like 5 to 10 years.
Yeah. So much has changed in the landscape of like what it means to create, what it means to work. Here I am in my co-working space. Like I probably wouldn't have founded a co-working space for spiritual practitioners 10 years ago because like you said, it was so much more limited. And I feel like there's such a bigger world out there in terms of like how you can make an impact in the world and what you can create for yourself that sustains yourself. And obviously the internet has had a huge part of that, a big impact on that. And then COVID, I think, came in and kind of like gave it a double whammy punch and was like, okay, like we're really creating a world where you now have far more ability to take your gifts, take your interests, and turn them into something. I don't think we would have a world with like a Kai Sanat even 10 years ago, and so that's really a benefit to the spiritual community. It's a benefit to wellness practitioners, folks that fall outside of traditional services, products, employment. Now have a lane
Mhm.
that's really open. And I feel like what being a really spiritually in tuned person, and I say this all the time, which is do it better. And then people are like, do what better? And I'm like, just it, like, they just do it better.
Yeah.
And one of those reasons is like our attunement and intunement with our spiritual selves. And having that groundedness, that clarity, like what you were talking about, really makes me think about being just like singularly focused.
Mhm.
I'm not trying to be everybody. I'm not trying to
Mhm.
be like, yes, I see that other person and they've got the brand deals or they've got a lucrative business or they are, speaking on huge stages. They're doing the things I want to do. But that is not my only like point of reference.
Mhm.
There are many different versions of this. And when I look at who I am and when I look at what I'm aligned with, I actually should be pursuing this, or I
Mhm.
actually should be going about it in this way. These are where my
Mhm.
strong suits are. These are where my weaknesses are. And so you have this open lane that being alive in 2025 has given us, and how to walk down that lane, what path to take, and, how to get through it, our own selves,
Mhm.
can help us with. And know thyself is such an important tenet for the witch. And I think that's why, because when you
Mhm.
know yourself, you literally don't waste your energy on anything that is not in alignment with like who
Mhm.
you really want to be, and that saves all of that energy for that.
Mhm.
And then
Yeah.
that ends up being like so much brighter and so much amazing because so much energy has just gone into that. And one of the ways I've seen people talk about this online, and I know you've talked about it on your page, so I know you've seen this, but like last year, I went down this crazy wormhole of how to dress according to my astrological placements.
Mhm.
And like the concept of, I was like, oh my God, yes, this makes so much sense. But then I got really confused because I was like, wait, hold on. Which placement am I supposed to be paying attention to? What
Mhm.
does it really tell me? Should I be looking at the light aspect of that placement, the shadow aspect of that placement? Like, what are we really focusing on here? And then I got really overwhelmed because I was like, damn, I don't have like $10,000 to buy a whole new wardrobe, because
Yeah.
like the girl in my birth chart, like the girl in my chart, like she does not live in my closet. I don't know who's been shopping, but it has not been her, and nothing is in alignment with that vibe. So I was like, oh no, what do I do? So I wanted
Yeah.
to talk to you about that, get some guidance for that. Like, if we are trying to show up in the world, online or otherwise,
Mhm.
according to our astrological placements, what should we be looking for in our birth chart? And
Yeah.
like, do I need a new wardrobe today? Which,
Yeah.
like, duh, I know the answer is yes, but like,
Yeah.
walk me through
Yeah.
it.
And before I dive really deep into that, I also want to say, because this can be applied to anything that you're exploring astrologically, because this really helped me, especially because there is a lot of information. It's really easy to get overwhelmed with all that information and confused.
Yeah.
And like there are some people who have their opinions on like this is the right way to do astrology. And this is we'll probably dive deeper into this topic later on because this is where like human design starts to blend in. Is using your human design strategy and authority is a really great way to help you navigate how to express your chart astrologically and make those decisions. So taking in like what everyone is saying for like dress this way or that way or according to this placement or that placement, and then you can use your strategy and authority to feel into which one is right for you.
Mm.
um but typically there is no like one right or wrong answer for personal style and dressing and astrology, and there's a mix. And there are some people who like to mix a blend of multiple placements in their everyday style and show up in that way in, whether it's online or in their personal life just all the time. And there are some people who like to be more intentional, where in their personal life they might show up in style and dress more as their Venus sign. And then in their brand or online or in their professional life, they are showing up more in their midheaven styling. It's really just depends on what you resonate with the most, what you're trying to accomplish with your styling, because then we can get into the whole like you're really doing glamour magic at that point. If you're
Yeah.
trying to be like intentional about like, okay, I want to attract I want to be seen in like my brightest spotlight when I show up in my brand and online, so I'm going to really leverage like my midheaven, and then you can add layers to it. Like I personally am a big like combining midheaven, rising, and Venus, because rising's going to add a little bit more of that personal connection aspect to it. And Venus, I know a lot of people talk about Venus with attraction or love or beauty, because Venus is really what you find valuable. And there's people who say, dress like your Venus, and then there are other people who say you don't, and then there are people who say, we'll save that for more like personal things or like for yourself. It really just depends on how you connect with your Venus. My Venus sign is in the same sign as what rules my rising and my midheaven. So it just makes sense for me to incorporate all three of those into the way that I show up, and I might leverage one placement more heavily depending on just how I feel that day, or like what my intention is for that day of what I want to project and how I want to be perceived. But I always say, like, start focusing on those three and just kind of explore, play. Don't get caught up in like if you're doing it right or wrong. You don't have to go out and like buy a whole new wardrobe or anything like that. I find that like if you start to explore what feels right to you, because everyone's chart is going to be different. Like someone who maybe isn't like me and they don't have any placements in their midheaven ruler or their chart ruler might not incorporate their Venus to the extent that I do. So it also is looking at your individual chart as a whole and how the whole chart influences which of those placements you might naturally gravitate towards expressing more in your style, and experimenting through things like color and what you already have in your wardrobe, maybe experimenting through like jewelry or hairstyle or makeup or like your perfume, and kind of just get resourceful with what you already have. And I think learning to express yourself through what you already have then helps you make more informed decisions and aligned decisions when you are, shopping for your astrology chart and things like that.
Yeah, because I feel like, first of all, thank you for pointing out that like it can be something like your scent, or it can be something like the jewelry you wear. Because that makes it a lot less like overwhelming to be like, oh my goodness, now I have to like create this whole new like image or whatever. But I think that it's also really helpful to think about how energy plays into all of this, because like as you said, you start getting into the realm now of glamour magic, because now you aren't just projecting or reflecting a particular transit energy, a particular vibe or whatever have you. Now you're beyond that, you're moving into actually controlling or influencing what people think about you from what they see, what they smell, what they interact with. And like, it's always incredible to me how much we are making decisions about people that we aren't conscious of. The little things that we are taking in those moments, and the decisions and thoughts that we're having about people, I think is fascinating. And there's probably so many like layers as to why your Venus placement might resonate with looking one way and why your midheaven might look another way. But it sounds like you're saying an approach is to look at all three, your Venus, your midheaven, and your rising, see what those placements tell you about yourself,
Yeah.
and then kind of go from there. So let's say I know my placements for that. And I'm trying to figure out, okay, how do I distinguish myself from other tarot readers or other Reiki healers that are out there? How do I build a voice that's authentic to me? Let's say I was like in a strategy session with you. So I don't recall what my midheaven is. Let's say it's Libra, because I know my moon, my Venus, and my rising are all Libra. And so that's my stellium. Yes. Three
Yeah.
things. Okay. That's my like stellium. So let's pretend it's also my midheaven. But let's say I have a Libra stellium in these three places. Like what would that tell you about me? And what might we look at in terms of ways to not just reflect that, but have other people see that part of me?
Yeah. So with like that Libra energy, from like a general perspective, because I really like to make it super personalized by looking at like the house that those placements are in, and then like what are the rulers of those of the planets that you have in those signs, to really give you like the most personalized approach to how that's going to best reflect you and answer those questions for you. Because it also can answer the question of when some people are like, but I don't resonate with this, because I hear that a lot, especially with like the midheaven. And it's like, we probably need to look deeper. And sorry, I have a cat who's like very needy, and he's
Oh my
like,
God. Never have to apologize for a needy cat. Yes. They are like, they make life so sweet.
But yeah, so, but with like the Libra, like the general consensus would be like, from a receptive level, like what people are receiving from you is this sense of like beauty and balance and harmony. And that's what you can really bring to the table through the work that you do. And then from your standpoint, balancing, and like, of course, here he is. But balancing, what makes you feel balanced, what creates a harmonious environment in your brand, because when you feel harmonious in that, it's going to be perceived that way, which is going to be really attractive and magnetic and make you feel the best, which is going to make you shine the best to your ideal client and your ideal audience. And especially with Libra, like focusing on beauty and art. So it really with Libra is about like what is like the aesthetic that you want to really like put out that feels like it's reflecting your self-expression or what it is that you want to express and convey to stand out, and really focusing on like aesthetic heavy things, like especially with any Libra, you might be the person who the aesthetics of everything you do matter down to like the font or the spacing or the hue of a color and things like that. And to one person who might feel like, oh, that doesn't really matter as much to make me stand out, it's going to be the thing that your audience picks up on that they do notice about you and is going to really stand out to them and attract them, even if it does seem like that's more trivial than, let's say, someone might think that, well, what you say in your messaging is what really makes you stand out. And like it can, but to some people based on their astrology, it might be the vibes and the magnetism that you express through just like the aesthetics that you express through, that is what really makes you stand out and attract people.
Yeah. I feel that because I love designing spaces and I love holding spaces, and like I can get really caught up in like the design details of something. And I think that pays off for me, because for other people that are looking for aesthetics, especially with like what I do as the space holder for a co-working space, people want to feel comfortable. They want to feel an alignment. They want to feel that they want to bring their clients here, have meetings here, etc. So creating those types of spaces is important. And I love how you're able to kind of just give that insight, even just with knowing like just the placements of those, the zodiac signs of those placements. So it sounds like there's a lot that can be uncovered just by looking at the astrology. And of course, now I want to get into like the human design part of it and how that ties into the next level of like what you can know about yourself so that you can show up in the world the way that you want. So I think that is a perfect time for us to take a little break, because we're going to get into it. I feel like we have so much more to learn about human design, perhaps even than astrology. So I want to make sure everybody is ready. So now is a good time, everybody, to go ahead and, refill your teas, go visit the little witch's room, because we will be right back after this short break. What's up, witches? While you're refilling your teas, I want to talk specifically to my boss witches out there. If you have a witchy business, a product, or a service that you want to get in front of thousands of witches who would be really interested in learning more about you and that tune into this show, then an ad spot is the best way to do that. Ad spots for season 4 are now open. The BetterWitch podcast has been downloaded over 16,000 times. Thank you all so much for the love. And I want you to ask yourself, what would you do with 16,000 new followers, customers, or clients? That's what you get with an ad spot on the BetterWitch podcast. So definitely get in now. The details for how to grab a spot in an upcoming episode are in the description of this video. Welcome back, everybody. We are picking up where we left off with Meaghan Senn, learning all about how astrology and human design can help us to make better choices in our careers, our businesses, and help us with our finances, our money wounds, and all of that great stuff on our ways to building as solopreneurs, as spiritual entrepreneurs. And we were just talking quite a bit about astrology our birth charts, what it can reveal about us, how tapping into our astrological archetypes can help us with everything from branding to messaging to just how we even maybe dress or carry ourselves. And I'm really curious about how human design folds into this, because it's a concept, obviously, I don't think is super new, but maybe you can educate me on that, Meaghan, like the history of
Mhm.
it. But I definitely obviously would imagine that it is newer than astrology and tracking astrology placements and things like that. But I do feel like for the last like 5 or 10 years or so, I've been hearing people talk about it more and more. And when I hear people talk about human design, it's always from a positive. It's
Mhm.
never like, oh, I learned about it and it did nothing. Usually I'm hearing folks be like, I learned about my human design and it blew the lid off of everything. And it made my life choices, it made things so much better. And like you, I've heard quite a few people say like it was so impactful in their lives that they had to start incorporating it into whatever they do for a
Mhm.
living, and either helping other people or just using it more effectively.
Mhm.
So, since I imagine folks are like me, and this is a little bit new, I am going to be annoying and ask you to kind of go back to the beginning to like 101 and treat us like a bunch of kindergartners and just sort of start at the top with what human design is, and maybe if you know off the top of your head, like the
Mhm.
different categories that we might fall into.
Yeah. So human design was created in the 80s. It was channeled by its creator, and it combines a variety of more ancient systems. So astrology, the Vedic chakra system, the Kabbalah, the Chinese I Ching or I Ching. I always like mess up which one or the
Me too.
pronunciation of that one. And it really is just, it combines all these ancient systems that people have used for thousands and thousands of years into like your one blueprint of your energy and who you were born to be and how you were born to um thrive and move and live in the world. And I always compare it to astrology with like astrology is kind of more of like your archetypes, your big story, your overall bigger story and the story that your life and your energy is telling. And human design does that too, but it also, in my experience, is a little bit more of like an operational guide to that astrology and really like how are you energetically operating on a day-to-day basis, which is why I think it's so helpful combining the two, because it can be really easy to try and think your way through your astrology, where human design is all about getting out of our heads and getting out of that logical mind and thinking our way through things to being in tune and present with our body and our body's wisdom and how our energy feels and how our energy interacts with the world around us in order to operate in an aligned way. And what I call your human design big three, which is like the first thing that you would learn and the most important thing to learn and kind of master using and embodying is going to be your energy type. So that would be generator, manifesting generator, manifester, projector, and reflector. And then each energy type has their own strategy tied to it. So for generators and manifesting generators, that's to respond. For projectors, that's waiting for the invitation. Manifestors is to inform. And then reflectors is same as their authority, which is kind of just like wait for the lunar cycle. And strategy is really like how you move throughout the world, how you make things happen, how you act and operate. And then we have authority, which is your inner guidance system, how you make aligned decisions. And so by following, especially your strategy and authority, that's the key, most important part of human design. And it's said that you could only learn that. And if you live in alignment with using your strategy and authority, you would naturally be in alignment with the rest of your human design chart without even knowing about the rest of your chart. So your strategy and authority really keeps you in alignment. It's how you operate on a daily basis, and it's how you live in alignment with the rest of your chart too.
Oh, this is so fascinating for me. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to need a session because um, I love a blueprint. Like, I love a template. I love a blueprint. Like, how I like to automate things in my
Mhm.
life, basically. I don't like having, I'm not a big fan of the figure out process. I like
Yeah.
to execute. So I enjoy when that part is done for you, and now it's just a matter of like getting it done. And I feel like having these answers for yourself basically gets rid of the figure out part. Now
Yeah.
it's just like how I execute. Um, and I just really love that, like, so much. So, like, how would someone know which type they are? I imagine there are like quizzes or calculators or things out there that you can like plug your chart into and find
Yeah.
out about, or like, do I need to sit down with someone like yourself and like have it calculate? I don't know. Is there a blood
Yeah.
test? How does it work?
Yeah, so you would go on like any human design website would have a free chart lookup. It's the same way as looking up your astrology chart because it's based on your birth date.
Okay.
So the way that um I find this interesting. I think that sometimes like knowing these things helps other people like conceptualize it better or like it click better. So your human design chart is there's 64 gates and you have the placements of the same planets that are in your birth chart that are also in gates because the different gates correspond with the different zodiac signs. And then you
Okay.
have another side of your chart that's called design or unconscious, which is based on approximately 3 months before you were born, and that activates other gates. And then the gates that end up being activated make up the rest of your chart because it will create channels, or if you're a reflector, it'll not create any channels. It'll determine what energy centers are defined in your chart, which then will determine what your energy type is, your strategy, and your authority is. And that's why it's such a great bridge with astrology, because it is your astrology, basically, just in a more complex operational sort of blueprint.
Right, right. Because I love one of the things that I have a BetterWitch Magic Intensive. It's a 6 month long program for baby witches that are looking to level up and really incorporate the craft into their day to day. Oh, you like that, right, Lauren? Thank you. Thank you for laughing at my joke, Lauren. Um, and in that program, one of the first things that I have all of the students do is to pull their birth chart, like on
Mhm,
a website. And I do that because I have found in my own life and in my own practice that I keep going back to it. And every time I read it, I feel like I see something different. And
mhm,
it's weird because I've read it like 1,000 times at this point, and every time I do, I feel like I notice something different. So it's been incredibly helpful for me to revisit my birth chart, like especially at like particularly like tough times in my life,
mhm,
and see what it reveals. Or if there's like a big transit happening, there's an eclipse happening in a particular sign or something, I'll go to my chart and see how that might impact me or how I might use that energy. But the one thing that a birth chart is missing is instruction on what to do with that
mhm,
information. Like it basically tells you that, you might experience these certain types of situations in your life, or you might have a tendency to respond to things in this way, or you might have particular interests, etc., or thrive in certain environments. But it doesn't really tell you, like, for example, if your birth chart says you're likely to thrive in like public speaking or something like that, it doesn't tell you to then how to like give yourself those opportunities in your life, or like, will thriving in public speaking be like a professional thing, or will it just be for fun? Should you be making a living from it? Like,
mhm,
all of that. And it sounds like human design maybe goes that extra step to actually tell you what you can do with
mhm.
those particular placements and like how to use it to your benefit, which to me is like chef's
Yeah.
kiss, the
And it
instructions.
Yeah, and it can really give you, because there's so many different ways that, you and someone else might have the same placement in your chart that tells you like, oh, you're, maybe aligned for public speaking, but there's so many different ways that two people can go about achieving that or fulfilling that. And human design can give you that extra layer of personalization of what this might actually mean, both with like if we were going to look at compare a birth chart placement to your human design, we could look at what is the gate that like that birth chart placement is in, that gives you an even more specific theme that might like for me personally, with like having a Scorpio North node, like there's so many different ways I could probably fulfill that, but looking at what gate my North node is in gives me a little bit more specific guidance or something to respond to, that is really personalized to how I meant to fulfill that versus maybe someone else who has the same placement. And then, of course, with your strategy and authority, that tells you basically how you make the decisions on that, how to navigate, making those opportunities happen and things like that, so that you're not in your head thinking about, well, okay, my chart says this, so how should I do that? And then you kind of start like throwing spaghetti at the wall, seeing what sticks.
Mhm.
And you end up, like you were saying before, you waste a lot of energy and you don't
Yeah.
conserve your energy for what's actually aligned. Human design gets you out of that, like thinking about what you should do and just being present and listening to it. Takes your mind from like the driver's seat to more of a passenger in your car, and it puts your body and your energy in the driver's seat and allows you to just be a lot more intuitive and act in ways that are correct with your energy and that conserve your energy and that work a lot easier for you, rather than just this like constant mental overload state that like a lot of us are in, trying to like figure things out, and like we act from like our mind and stuff like that. And a lot of times, like, yes, you can get there eventually, but it it's so much harder, and it tends to be less fulfilling, and it tends to burn us out multiple times along the way when we're trying to logic our way through all of this information and how to make it work for us and things like that.
Yeah, one thing I think is like very, I don't know, just like helpful, is to understand the different ways in which you can like use all of your spiritual practices to inform how you want to navigate whatever challenges in your life. Obviously, as a spiritual entrepreneur, I think a lot about how it plays into business and like business decisions and things like that. But I really do feel like a lot of the trouble that we have as spiritual practitioners is that we find ourselves in that like spaghetti on the wall place.
Mhm.
And some of it is actually like the downside of what I was talking about earlier of a benefit of the internet. You get all of these different, you have all this freedom for how you could grow something, how you could create something, how you can show up in the world. But sometimes it's almost like it's too much. And it's
Mhm.
like, oh no, should I be like, the cottage core witch that's like always got the vibey video? Or like, should I be, the educator with like the graphs and the information? And when you are a gifted individual, and especially if you're a creative and gifted individual, the possibilities really are endless.
Mhm.
Like, especially if you add that with like good work ethic, like you're willing to work hard at whatever, you could find yourself really zapping yourself and really burning yourself out
Mhm.
significantly because you're trying everything because you could do everything. You could try everything, right? Like some folks know that, like, no, I'm only good at this one thing. I can only really show up this one thing. I've got to do things this way. But a
Mhm.
lot of us are not like that. A lot of us are
Mhm.
capable of being multi hyphenate. We're capable of doing readings and also Reiki sessions and also making jewelry or doing spells for people. And so we have all of these options in front of us, and we often don't know until after we've put in the time and energy and effort to try to make that thing happen to realize, like, oh, this isn't really truly in alignment with me. I'm just a go getter that could make any idea a thing. And I feel like one of the ways in which understanding your human design can help you is it can help you almost to like protect yourself from yourself and be like, yes, you could do this. Yes, you
Mhm.
could go down that path, but the way that would really take off for you, or the way that's really going to feel comfortable for you or feel really right for you, is this. Like,
Mhm.
avenue. So in some ways it almost like it tells you the things not to do.
Yeah. And it, like with human design, we have our own consistent energy that's natural to us that we're really meant to rely on. And then we also take in external energy, which creates that conditioning and creates that, oh, I see this person doing it that way. Maybe I could do that, or maybe I should try it this way. And if we fall into that cycle, then it makes us not trust our own way that we naturally want
Mhm.
to do it or are called to do it. And it also makes it harder for us to hear that way, or to hear our energy and feel our energy and let us guide it, because or let us be guided by it, because now we have to sift through all this external noise and how
Mhm.
other people are doing it. And so human design really helps us also differentiate like what is our own unique energy and gifts and ways of doing it, and how our intuition and energy is, nudging us to do something versus what's just external conditioning that we've just consumed. And it helps us really get out of like the consumer role in our lives and more into the creator role and creating in our own individual way, which I think is so helpful just with all, even like being an online business owner. Like, it's, unless you, I don't know, maybe have a whole team that literally does everything for you, it's hard not to at least be taking in some external energy when you're, whether online or creating content or posting on social media or things like that. You're seeing stuff. So you're, even if you don't realize it, that energy creeps in. And I always say human design is not about achieving perfect alignment 24/7. It gives you this tool where you can recognize when something isn't right for you and how to course correct into what is right for you, rather than maybe, wasting 2 months doing what wasn't right for you to begin with, but you didn't know how to tell the difference. And so then you went through it, and then like 2 months later or whatever, you kind of wake up to like, oh, this actually isn't working, and maybe it's because it's not right for me. It really saves you a lot of that time, and simultaneously helps you build that trust with yourself, because I think a lot of people just struggle with like trusting how they want to do it, especially when they don't have any external example to kind of fall back on, because it can be scary to just do something in a way that you see no one else doing it and trust that it'll work.
Yeah, absolutely. It really can be. Being the first or being of a few is always really difficult. And I think that's what has led so many of us spiritual practitioners, um, leaders, just community, like just anybody who wants to see their version of the world like actually come to be, why so many of us have started up membership groups. Because I think that there's an understanding that we all have that each of us really is probably the standalone in our
Mhm.
families, in our friend groups, in our communities, maybe in our office where we work, etc., that is interested in a bigger picture or has a more holistic and inclusive view of what it means to like exist on earth, and is more open to incorporating the elements and the astros, the cosmos, etc., in that conceptualization of like who we are and what we can do in the world. So it's important that we have each other, to be able to connect with and learn from each other and grow. And it just sounds like, you are doing an incredible job of helping people to go beyond their preconceived notions about what they're capable of, and looking deeper, learning more about themselves, and really unlocking different aspects of themselves that they can use, um, to make an impact in the world and in their own lives, which is really, really cool. I imagine that you work with people one on one. I think I know that you do, but then you also have maybe some classes and stuff like that. So we're getting ready to wind down our time here, and I want to ask you about like how people can work with you and all that good stuff. But it looks like we had a question come in from Lauren, so I want to grab that. If there are any other questions, quickly drop them down below. If you are listening to this episode on a podcast platform, this is a friendly reminder. One of the benefits of subscribing to the BetterWitch Coaching and Podcast YouTube channel and tuning into these live tapings there is that you get to share your questions with our guest co-hosts and get them answered potentially live on the show. So definitely make sure to find me on YouTube and follow us there. Lauren is asking, hey, Meaghan, what's been the most exciting discovery for you thus far while learning about human design?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think that the most exciting discovery was honestly rediscovering myself, because I feel like that's what
Mm,
human design really does. Is I, I can think back to when I was a kid, and then I see this modeled in like when I see, kids now, is like we were born living our design. Like we as kids, we were
mm,
living our design, and then at a certain age we start to, I think, notice the outside world and notice the influences of the outside world. And of course, like our parents and how we're brought up and things like that. And that's what starts the conditioning that takes us further and further away from living our design. So we get told, oh, no, you have to do it this way, or you can't be doing that and whatnot. And so I think the most exciting thing for me, and I see, this moment happen with everyone I work with in human design, is really just rediscovering themselves and meeting themselves again, and um kind of like it's like a homecoming. You finally come home
Mhm.
to like how your soul has been wanting to do things like forever, and you've just been denying it that because and it's like to no fault of our own. It's just how like the world works, is we just get told that these are kind of like the safe ways to go about doing things. And now I think more than ever, we're all waking up that like there is no such thing as like a guaranteed, safe, secure way to like bank on when it comes to your life and success and achieving. And this really not just brings you home, which is exciting, but it also gives you like, it opens up the world to you, which is also really exciting.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. That was such a great question, Lauren. Thank you for that. And yeah, so I really feel like obviously with astrology, with any of these types of like personal explorations, there's so much that we can talk about from a general perspective. But it is kind of the thing that at the end of the day, you probably really benefit from having your own chart read and having your own design detailed out. So like, can people get that from you? What does that look like? And how do we reach out to you if we want to learn more about how we can use our human design to level up our spiritual businesses?
Yeah. So if you're brand new to human design, I always recommend a human design reading because that will get you um, really set in the foundations of your chart and really making sure that you understand like those big three that I talked about and how to actually use them. Because like I said, it's an embodiment practice. So like my big thing is making sure that people know how to actually apply it and use it instead of just like, well, I know this information now, but what do I actually
Right.
do with it? Which I do human design readings. And then for people that really want to focus on business, and even if you are newer to human design, but you really want a business focus, this, especially if you already are a little bit familiar with astrology too, I do what I call cosmic business accelerator sessions, which combine your birth chart and your human design chart to really bring them together for elevating your business or overcoming any challenges and things like that. And then I have the membership, which is like my more group experience into immersing yourself. And pretty much everything I do in my business is like inside that membership. And then I also have some classes and some like master class bundles and things like that for people who want to be on more of a self-paced journey to really dive into how they can use these tools either for their business or for things that are more around like money and wealth and abundance as a whole, not just within business.
I love that. That sounds really helpful. I'll have to hit you up. And I definitely want to invite you to join us in the bunker. You have such great information. I know we were talking a little bit about being a freelance writer and the difference between self publishing and publishing with major publishing houses and things like that. And you have such an incredible wealth of knowledge. So I do hope you'll join us in the bunker and say what's up in there and make yourself available to the witches in there who might be very interested and also learning more about their human design because I'm just a huge fan of really diving deep into who you are because your business, when you create a business that is soul motivated, when you create a business that is rooted in what you want to do to serve people and help people, it's inevitable that that business is going to be an extension of you. And
Mhm.
so the more you know about yourself, the more you give yourself what you truly need and align things with what is really good for you, the better your business is going to be.
Mhm.
So I definitely encourage folks to consider learning more about their human design and reaching out to you for more knowledge on that. And bunker witches, get excited to see Meaghan in the bunker. You'll be able to jump right in and say what's up there. So I want to just like thank you so much for being with us. I know that your Instagram is the best way for us to reach you.
Yes, that's the best way to reach me, and my DMs are always open, so feel free to slide into my DMs and say hi, or if you know your human design or even like your astrology big three, I'm also nosy, so I like knowing knowing those things about people. So feel free to introduce yourself and say hi.
I love that. I love that. Thank you so much for being with us, Meaghan. This has been an
Yeah, thank
incredibly helpful chat, super informative, and really opened my eyes into how my human design could help me. It's the next level, really, for me, of the thing to learn about myself. So, thank you so much for being here and sharing all of that with us. Have a beautiful rest of your day.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you, witches, for tuning in to another episode of the Better Witch podcast. I've been your host, Allie Kravitz. For spiritual business tips, follow me on Instagram and Threads at Bronx Witch. And you can find links to my classes, coaching programs, and more in the description of this episode. Remember, witches, when we know better, we witch better. I'll see you in the next one. Blessed be.